Hey, what's up everybody? This is Spencer from Pixel and Bracket. In this tutorial, I'm going to show you how to design Instagram stories in Illustrator and export them using Artboards. Okay, for this tutorial, I'm going to try to assume nothing about what you may or may not know in Illustrator, and I'll guide you along. So just follow along and you'll be all right. File, New. That's how we're going to create a new document. That's also Command or Control in. That's going to pull up the new document window. You got a bunch of confusing stuff, but over here on the right is what we need to look at. For Instagram stories, let's make this pixels, and we're going to be 1080 pixels wide, 1920 pixels tall. Now, the other important thing here is that underneath advanced options, make sure you click RGB color mode. Illustrator has this thing where it likes to make it CMYK. We want RGB color mode. Everything else is great. Hit create. There we go. There is our little artboard. Now, if you're new to Illustrator, I'm going to zoom all the way out with Command or Control minus and kind of show you things. See this big gray box? That is your canvas. That is what you can create things on. That little white one in the center there, that's the artboard. We're going to create multiple artboards, and then you can export graphics based on those artboards. So let's zoom back in here. Our artboard is 1920 tall by 1080 wide. Notice how it kind of looks like a phone screen. Exactly. So here we go. We're going to duplicate this artboard. I hold shift to pull up, I hold spacebar to pull the hand tool up, and I can click and drag around my canvas. With this artboard here, I'm going to grab the artboard tool. That's this little tool that looks like a folded paper over here. The shortcut key for that is Shift O. When I click on that, it's going to highlight the artboard, and I can actually move this artboard around. Well, I'm going to leave him right there. What I want to do is duplicate him. We're going to make 3 different slides to our story. So I'm going to hold Option or Alt, and my arrow becomes a double arrow. I'm going to click and drag, and while I do that, I'm going to hold Shift. Notice that pink line is helping us keep it completely horizontally aligned there. So I'm going to let go here, and I have a second artboard. It even names it 02 Artboard 1 copy. Let's do one more artboard. I'm going to hold Option or Alt, click and drag, and then hold Shift, and we're going to create one more artboard out here. Right there. So this is sort of the power of Illustrator. Separate artboards allow us to visualize our entire story at once. It's really nice. All right, I'm going to go back to the selection tool up here. Now, one quick thing to note is I'm in CC 2018 under the new Essentials panels, which means all my stuff is over here on the right side. But most of the time that I use things, I'll let you know that you can go up to Window to find them. For instance, the alignment panel is down here, the color panel is down here, and other things. So when I get into those, I'll make sure to describe where they are if you can't find them, or if you're in an older version. Okay, so we have 3 artboards. Let's bring in some photos. I'm going to go up to File, down to Place. That's Shift Command P or Shift Control P as a shortcut. Now I need to find my files. So I'm going to go to Tutorial Recording, Recorded. I'm pretty sure it's under Images. Okay, and then Instagram stories. This is what you got to deal with sometimes. All right, and then images under here is where I have my images, and then we'll put the exports in this folder. So I just have 2 folders set up. So under images, I actually have 3 images. I'm just going to bring in one for now. I'm going to click on this Grant Ritchie image, and it shows up as a link. So you can bring it in as an embedded file, or you can link it to this photo. The thing about linking is if you ever move your Illustrator document, it's very easy to misplace those links, and so when you open up your Illustrator document, you'll have to relink them. So how about I go ahead and uncheck that? We are not going to link the photo. I'm going to embed the photo, and we're going to place it in here. What that does is it puts it right into the Illustrator document. It makes the document a little bit larger, but that's okay. All right, so you notice that I have a little preview, and I can just drop this guy in here. I'm going to click, and there he is. Nice big photo. Command minus to zoom out a little bit. That's also Control minus. Okay, so here's my photo. Now, obviously, it's kind of difficult to deal with this photo given how big it is. Well, we can grab the corners of the photo, and we can scale and stretch and skew this photo. But watch what happens here. If I don't hold Shift, look at how silly looking that photo is. So I'm going to undo with Command or Control Z, make sure whenever you're scaling photos from any of these edges, you hold shift. Look what happens when I hold shift. It keeps it in proportion. All right, we want to keep those ratios. We don't want to skew and stretch our images. Okay, cool. So I can fit this right in here. Perfect, but it still crosses over onto this guy. What should I do about that? Well, we're gonna crop it. And the best way to crop in Illustrator, while there is a crop photo or crop image button, you'll see it here to the right or up to the top, that's actually gonna delete parts of the image, and I don't want that. I wanna keep this as editable as possible. So I'm gonna zoom in one level here. That's Command Control plus. All right, now once I'm here, I need to create the shape of basically the mask or the crop. So I'm going to create over here a rectangle, and that's with the shortcut key M for the rectangle tool. This rectangle, I'm going to sort of align it to the top left of my artboard. You can still see the outline of the artboard. I'm going to click and drag all the way down to the bottom right corner. Now, one thing that's helping me align some of this stuff is the smart guides. Those smart guides are under view down to smart guides. I'd recommend turning them on. That's all the little pink lines you see that's helping us line things up. That's Command or Control U is the shortcut. Okay, so once we have that and the rectangles in front of the image, we can select both by clicking and dragging over both and just kind of letting go. So it's got both selected. I can right click, make clipping mask, and that's going to clip the photo to the bounds of that rectangle we just created. That rectangle is the size of our little artboard, which means the photo is now the size of our artboard. Now when I hover over it, you still see the outline of the photo. That's because this is now like a little clipping mask group. I can double click into this and I can move this photo around. So if I want to resize it, holding Shift and Option or Alt, kind of scaling that up, I can do that. I can resize this photo and position it in there. And notice how up here you have layer 1, which is like our base layer, and then we're inside of the clipping group. That's the current isolated group. We can click this arrow, or we can double click outside of the group to go back to the base level. So here we are. We have a photo on an artboard. Now I'm going to lock this in so it's like a background object. I'm going to go up to Object, down to Lock, and we're going to lock this selection, what I currently have selected. That's Command or Control 2. Now I can't accidentally move this guy, so he's locked in there on top of this artboard. Let's add a little bit of text to this. So I'm going to show you a couple things. I just showed you how to create rectangles, and now we're going to show you how to use the text tool or the type tool. So it's right here above that rectangle. It's the shortcut key T. Once I click on it, I can do two things. I believe it's called point type and area type. Area type is kind of like a text box as you know it. I can click and drag to create a square, and that's going to create a text box. And if you're in an updated version, that's going to fill it in with what they call lorem ipsum, which is dummy text. I'm going to change the size of that so you guys can see that. You see we have all this dummy text in here. This text box behaves like a normal sort of text box where if you click and drag it, the text will adjust to fit the frame. So if you want something like that, you can put that in here. If you want to change that, see this little offshoot here, this little circle, and then it pulls up a little, hey, arrow to this other T icon. If I double click this, it changes this text box to a different to the point type text box, and it's telling me you have overset text, which means there's text outside of the frame. Is that okay? Yes, it is. It's just dummy text. So I'm going to click yes. Now this text box doesn't adjust the text. In fact, it skews the text. It makes it smaller and makes it larger. Once again, anytime you're skewing or scaling anything, make sure you hold Shift to keep it in proportion. Okay? I'm going to recap that really quick. You can create an area type text box by clicking and dragging, or you can create a point type, which is a scalable piece of text, by just clicking on your canvas. So if we just click out here, it creates a piece of text. We're going to actually say photographer on this one. We're actually going to put some text in here. And this piece of text, if I click the selection tool, have it selected, can grab an edge, hold Shift, and scale it up as large as I want it. Okay, so let's get rid of this text box. Now we've got text taken care of. You guys know how to handle it. Up in the top or to the right, you'll notice the character panel. If you don't see it at all, go to Window, down to Type, and then Character. And you also have Paragraph in here. And that character panel allows us to change different characteristics, right? So we can select this text and we can adjust our font. I'm going to go to Babus. We'll do Babus bold. How's that? So we've got Babus New bold, and or however you pronounce that guy. And this is the tracking, which is like the letter spacing. I want to space those letters out a little bit. So I'm going to space them out maybe 50 points. And I like that spacing a little bit better. So what I'm going to do on this photo is just put like photographer and then the name of the photographer. So I would rather this be probably in white. So I'm going to switch this color. You'll notice an appearance either over here, up top, to the right. Anywhere you see a little color block, you can change the fill color of your text. I'm going to change it to white. And I'm going to situate this right down here. And we're going to make this a little bit smaller. Holding shift, grabbing an edge, making that smaller. And I'm going to duplicate this by holding Option or Alt, just the same way we duplicated Artboards actually. Anytime you hold Option or Alt and click and drag, it's going to duplicate. Hold shift to keep it lined up. And we're going to put them right there. And then I'm going to put in the photographer's name. So Grant Ritchie. Now this text, a little design tip here, I want to create a little bit of a hierarchy. This is sort of my subheader. It's kind of like his title. This is his name. I want that name to be nice and big. So I'm going to grab that edge and hold shift and just scale that up some. And we're creating a contrast between these two pieces of text. So we're going to situate him down here. Just use the arrow keys to kind of line that edge up. And there we go. We have photographer Grant Ritchie, and this could be an Instagram story. All right. I can't really read that, so let me teach you one more little effect you can use. I'm going to grab both of these, so just click and drag and grab both of them, and then I'm going to go up to Effect. Now I don't use these very often, and with this I'll make sure it's subtle, but you can go down to Stylize and then add a drop shadow. So if you're like me and you've got this text on another piece of imagery that's sort of white, you can add a tiny drop shadow to help it stand out. I'm going to hit preview on this to see where our drop shadow's at. For me, that's a little much. So I'm going to pull back the opacity to something like 30%, and I can hit tab to enter that in and preview how it looks. I can pull back the offset to like 3 pixels each, both the X, which is the horizontal, and the Y, which is the vertical. And then I can sort of look at the blur, and maybe I'll blur that a little bit more to like 7 pixels, and then kind of see where that's at. I can hit OK, and now we have a tiny bit of a drop shadow on that guy that helps it stand out from the background a little bit. So, but not too much, right? I want it to be subtle. So photographer, Grant Ritchie, boom, there we go. All right, let's say we want to add another image. I'll just go up to File, down to Place. I'm going to add another image. This one's by Desmond Simon. I'm not linking it, so it's right there embedded into the file. Hit Place. Just click where you want them, and there it is. Now, what I can do is go ahead and scale this guy down, kind of situate him in here. And he's a little short, so we're going to just grab this edge, hold Shift, scale him up. He's in there. I want that house in there a little bit, so we're going to kind of offset that. There we go. Once again, same thing. Grab that rectangle tool, click and drag, make a rectangle that's the size of your artboard, 1920 by 1080. Grab the selection tool, select both, right click, make clipping mask. There we go. Now this is cool. We can actually, well, we want to lock him in, right? Remember the shortcut key is Command 2 or Control 2. So now I can't accidentally move him. I'm going to grab this photographer, Grant Ritchie. I grabbed both of them. I'm going to hold Option or Alt, click and drag and move him over here. So we just duplicated that. And this photographer, oh, here's one more thing. He's on bottom. Okay, he's on bottom of this photo because we brought this photo in second. So we want to arrange him and bring him to the front. We're going to do that by right-clicking on this selection, going to Arrange, and then Bring to Front. The shortcut key for that is Shift, Command, right bracket, or Shift, Control, right bracket. And now we have another photographer in here, and this guy's name is Desmond Simon. There we go. There's his photo. Let's say we want to do this one a little bit different. What if we want to center these? Well, I'm going to grab both of these so I can edit both of them at the same time. And I'm going to go over to whoa, I can't talk. I'm going to go over to paragraph, and that's also up in window, type paragraph, remember, if you can't find it. I'm going to just do align center on these guys. So they're center aligned. And I'm also going to, align center. That's the alignment there. That's like the justification. I'm going to now align it to our artboard right in the center of our artboard. To do that, grab both, right? So click and drag, grab both. Now go up to Object, down to Group. The shortcut key for this is Command or Control G. Real easy. So now these pieces move together no matter which one I grab. I'm going to align this to this artboard. So I'm going to grab this group, go up to Window, down to Align. That's going to pop out the alignment panel. I'm going to make sure that my options are shown, right? So normally it's like this. Click on this little hamburger, show options, down to align to right here. I'm going to align it to the artboard. And I want to horizontal align the center. So it's going to scoot that over so it's in the center of the artboard. And I'm going to vertical align center. So it's going to put it right in the middle of the artboard. There we go. Photographer Desmond Simons right there in the middle of the artboard. So if you wanted something sort of in the middle, you can do that, right? All right, let's bring in the last photo. File, place. We're going to do, I think this one's Casey Horner. We're going to place him in here. He's actually got a vertical photo, which is nice. Scale this down with Shift, right? Hold that Shift key. Scale that down. I'm going to hold Shift and Option or Shift and Alt scale from the center. Okay, cool. So we're going to line this up. Just kind of make sure we cover the artboard. Sort of position it where I want it, right in there. Create the clipping mask. M is the shortcut key for the rectangle tool. Create a rectangle the size of our artboard. There it is. V to go to the selection tool. Grab both. Right click. Make clipping mask. Okay, there it is. Let's lock him in with Command or Control 2. And then let's bring this guy over, holding Option or Alt and Shift and bringing him over here. And he's going to line up right in the center, right there. And remember, we got to bring him to the front. So right click, arrange, bring to front. There we go. He's in the front. How about I want a little like box around this guy? So I'm going to scale him down a little bit, holding Shift and Option to scale from the center. I'm going to bring him up here into the sky some, and then we're going to create a rectangle. Remember that rectangle tool. I'm going to create it just like this, kind of around that text. And it's filled with white. Well, I'm going to switch this. Swap fill and stroke. That's Shift X as a shortcut. And it swaps that white to the stroke. So now the stroke is white and the fill is nothing. All right, it's got a big old slash. We can increase this stroke, I don't know, maybe 10 points. And then we can use that selection tool, click off, and now we have a stroked rectangle around our text. And I'm going to get rid of the drop shadow on these guys. I can do that by going to Window, down to Appearance. And in this appearance, in the group, there's not a drop shadow on the group. So I actually need to click into the group. So we're going to double click on the group. Now we're inside the isolated group. Remember that clipping mask. We can click on each of these individually and remove that drop shadow. We can actually just click the eyeball to toggle the visibility of it. Click Desmond Simons, same thing, toggle that visibility. And now we can exit out of that. We can double click outside of that group, and there it is. And let's go ahead and bring him down to where you can read him, maybe down here to the bottom. And we want to make sure that this group is aligned to this rectangle. So we're going to Shift click and grab both of these pieces, and then I'm going to click on the rectangle. Notice how it's highlighted in blue. That means we're aligning to a key object now. So remember that alignment panel. Go back to there, and this says a little key down here, align to key object. We're aligning the text to the rectangle. So I'm going to do the same horizontal and vertical alignment to make sure it's in the center of the rectangle. And then the rectangle, I want to make sure it's in the center of the artboard. So I'm going to grab this group, or this set of objects, make it an entire group with Command or Control G. And then I'm going to align this to the center of the artboard. Align to artboard, center, and it just scooted it over a touch. So there we go. We have 3 separate ways of sort of, crediting photos in Instagram stories. Okay, you made it this far. Let's export these. To export artboards, go to File, down to export, export for screens. That's also Option Command E, I believe. That's going to pull up this guy. Okay, let's start in the top left. We got artboards and assets. I want to export artboards. It gives us a selection of each of the artboards. Cool, there they are. We can actually change the name of each of these. So if I wanted to name this Story 1, because I know that's the first one I want, I can name this one Story 2, and I could name this one just by clicking and typing Story 3. Okay, cool. Select which ones do you want to export. I want to export all of them. Okay, export, where do I want to put them? Well, I'm going to click this folder and select where I want to put them. I actually want to go to recording, images, Instagram stories, exports. That's where I'm putting my images. Choose. Good. Okay. Open location after export. That's just going to open the window. Create subfolders. I don't need to do that. Now formats. This matters. I want to scale this to a resolution. And that resolution, I'm going to do 72 points per inch, basically. This is just for digital, basically. Format, I want this to be JPEG 100, highest quality. Okay, that's the only scale that I need. After that, I'm just going to hit Export Artboard. That's going to export those. It's going to open up the exports. Notice they're all right here. I'm going to hit spacebar, and we have each of these images exported, ready to go for Instagram stories. Awesome. Now, what you want to do with these images is get them to your phone somehow. If you're on a Mac, you can do, AirDrop, or you can use something like Google Drive or Dropbox, or instant message it to yourself. Instant message, that's an old term. iMessage, that's it. You can iMessage it to yourself, or however you need to get this to your phone. Now, Instagram does have this finicky thing with the metadata where it wants only photos in the last 24 hours on your stories. So if you do this in the last 24 hours and you go ahead and put it on your phone, you can easily go ahead and put them in your Instagram stories. However, sometimes they have issues with that, so you might need to take a screenshot of it once it's on your phone to create like a new metadata image or whatever. You might need to send it to someone, have them send it back to you, or any of those ways to sort of trick Instagram stories into thinking that that photo was taken in the last 24 hours. That's it for this tutorial, guys. I hope it was alright to follow. I know it got a little bit long, but I wanted to cover several different ways and lots of different things, tips, tools, techniques to create stories, especially for people who don't use Illustrator much, but they want to create more creative Instagram stories. So hopefully you learned something here. Like this video if you like this video. Subscribe for more tips and tutorials, and I'll see you guys next time.